threat of a typhoon can't dampen the enthusiasm of this country for Formula One. Suzuka is a 130,000 sellout. It is the Japanese Grand Prix with Martin Brundle and James Allen.
Thank you, Jim. Hello, everybody. Well, it's amazing, isn't it, what a role luck plays in sport. Yesterday, as Jim was just saying, the worst typhoon for 10 years was due to hit Suzuka, and if it had, there would absolutely not have been a Grand Prix today, judging by the devastation in Yokohama and Tokyo, over two places it did hit yesterday evening. No way we could have raced today. But luckily, the typhoon missed us by 40 miles. Then, this morning, on a wet but drying track in qualifying, those who'd had a poor result in China 2 weeks ago, like the Schumacher brothers, for example, found themselves in luck, going out late in the order as the track was at its fastest, and they were able to grab the front row of the grid for this afternoon's Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher on pole for the 8th time here in Suzuka in his career. Ralf Schumacher alongside him on the front row of the grid, lap record holder from last year's Grand Prix, but still looking for his first podium in 2004. Well, you know, with no dry running on Friday, it was wet all day Friday, and yesterday's track action cancelled due to the threat of that typhoon. The teams and the drivers have had to take a calculated gamble on tyre choice and setup for this afternoon's Grand Prix. There's no question that the condition of this racetrack, which is now bone dry, as you can see, will change and evolve throughout the race as more rubber goes down, the temperature rises. It's currently 32 degrees. It's a real shot in the dark for all the teams. And no question, those who are most adaptable will do the best this afternoon. Those who've ridden their luck so far brilliantly include Mark Webber. You can see him just there, 3rd on the grid in the Jaguar. Takuma Sato alongside him, 4th on the grid. And Jenson Button, 5th in the other BAR Honda. Capacity crowd of over 130,000 people. Enormous groundswell of support for Takuma Sato, who Martin is never dull, is he, when he races? And I should imagine his first concern will be to get himself in front of Mark Webber on the opening lap.
Yes, a lot of support out there for Sato. Even in Ayrton Senna's heyday, I don't remember seeing this many people here when I'd have been down on the grid and Murray Walker would have been up here talking about it. And by the way, happy 81st birthday, Murray Walker, today. But there is incredible support out there and a brilliant atmosphere. And this is really the calm after the storm that didn't quite make it here, but I'm sure we're going to get a storm in the race. You talked about the unknowns out there, James. They don't know exactly where they're at with ride heights, tyre pressures, wing level, brake blanking, engine blanking. There's so much information they normally collect over a weekend that they haven't been able to do, so they're relying on previous data from this season and races here before in previous years. 2 or 3 of the drivers out there have not done a single flying lap on dry tyres, because in qualifying 2 they were still on inters. So, but the bulk of the grid have only done the 1 flying lap on dry tyres. So they've had to guess which compound and construction to go for of the 2 that they're allowed to bring to each and every Grand Prix, and have a good educated guess, as you said, James, at the rest of the setup. It has been a change in climatic conditions announced, so they can run any tyres they want for the start of the Grand Prix. They can adjust the front wing, they can adjust the brake blanking and the engine cooling blanking, but to what?
Well, indeed, and being able to change the tyres is quite significant, because it means that almost everybody, I would have thought, will put a new set of dry tyres on. As Martin said, 2 or 3 of them qualified on intermediate tyres that went out very early in the session. Timo Glock, for example, Gianmaria Bruni, but they've been allowed to go to dry tyres. You can see the shininess of those tyres suggesting that everybody has taken advantage, putting brand new set on. With a green track like this, no rubber down, the wear on the tyres is going to be very, very severe. And that's going to be one of the keys to this afternoon's race, is managing the tyres. If they start to go off dramatically, you'll see it. You'll see the tyres get all scruffy, and you'll see the lap times getting scruffy as well.
Ferrari will be particularly pleased, I think, to be able to change the tyres. We understand they're on the softer compound with a high wear rate, and that's before you take into consideration any graining or possibly blistering. We need to watch out for that in the race, James, because when the track is green, you've got a lot of long, fast corners here where you get a high temperature build-up in the outside tyres through those corners, and they've always been quite marginal on blistering, but with fresh tyres and a green racetrack. But we think also Ferrari is struggling on wear rate too, so they'll be pleased to just even knock 2 or 3 laps off those and give themselves fresh tyres to start with.
field, streams away on the formation lap then, led by Michael Schumacher. His 8th pole of the season. It's been a little bit quiet though since the Hungarian Grand Prix in August, beaten at Spa, as you remember, by Raikkonen, beaten since then twice by teammate Rubens Barrichello. Everyone expecting Michael Schumacher to bounce back very strongly here this afternoon. Also, you can see Mark Webber there just in front of Takuma Sato. Will this be a repeat of the Hungarian Grand Prix last year, where Webber, starting 3rd on the grid, held a lot of people behind him, and that allowed the cars in front, in that case it was Fernando Alonso. Today it's the Schumacher brothers to run away and hide. An awful lot of different tactics at play this afternoon. The teams, I know, are all going to have to be very alive to what's happening with the cars, the tyres, listening to the radios from the drivers, communicating what they want at the next round of pit stops. Strategies certain to evolve and change throughout the Grand Prix. Mixture of 2- and 3-stop strategies predicted, and the first stop somewhere around lap 10 to 13.
Yes, of course they can take reference from the driver during the stint, but also they'll get to actual tyre pressures as soon as the driver's made his first stop. They can't do anything about that until the second stop. I remember when we used to have tyres fitted over a Grand Prix weekend and it had been heavily raining, often there was a moisture content got in the tyre. They do purge them and fill them with nitrogen, but there is still an element, a percentage of uncontrollability when slick or dry racing tyres have been fitted in damp conditions over a Grand Prix weekend.
As you can see, the track is now bone dry. The temperature climbing all the time. It's now 34 degrees, the track temperature, 28 the air temperature. By far the hottest it's been all weekend, by far the driest it's been all weekend, but the humidity is intense. It's dropped down a little bit now. It was 90% about half an hour ago. It's gone down to just under 80%, but it's still very sticky out there, very physical on the drivers, this racetrack. It's going to be hard work this afternoon.
It is actually raining 4 kilometres away from the racetrack. I just heard from one team on the grid. And so there's rain about, but that is forecast to pass well by. But 4 drivers to particularly watch out for who are out of position on the grid given the performance of their cars. Alonso 11th, Raikkonen 12th, Montoya 13th, and Barrichello 15th after locking his brakes in his qualifying lap at the final chicane and getting it horribly wrong. But we'll watch them coming through the field.
And remember, Ralf Schumacher very sore about his brother Michael pushing him towards the wall here last year. They had a very intense dogfight, and they are lining up alongside each other on the front row. We're on board with Takuma Sato in 4th place. Just on the right of your picture is the Jaguar of Mark Webber. Behind him is Jenson Button, looking for a strong finish this afternoon. That battle continuing between BAR Honda and Renault for 2nd in the World Championship. 130,000 expectant Japanese fans. Sato carrying the nation's hopes. They're all looking forward to a good race, and so are we. You know the drill. When the 5 lights go out, we'll be racing at Suzuka. 53 laps then. Start. No! Down they go. Good start by Jenson Button. He's right ahead of Webber already. So is Sato. Webber's dropped at least 2, if not 3 places. Trulli's got him as well. And has Button gone around the outside of Sato? Into turn 1 they go.
Tremendous action then, an easy start then for Michael Schumacher, his brother following him, and I believe it's Button up into 3rd place. Coulthard looking like he had a tidy start too. So clean, no contact from what we saw, and that'll be Alonso trying to venture around the outside of the S's there. So Michael Schumacher leads from Ralf Schumacher, Button 3rd, Sato 4th, Trulli 5th, Webber 6th, Coulthard is up to 7th, Villeneuve 8th, Fisichella 9th, Alonso already up to 10.
So the big question mark about the effect that Mark Webber and the Jaguar would have already been answered. Not for the first time, that Jaguar being a bit tardy off the start line. It's been an Achilles heel for them, hasn't it? Remember back to the Malaysian Grand Prix earlier this year, Mark Webber on the front row of the grid went nowhere at the start. It's happened over and over again. This time he has lost 3 places. He's gone from 3rd down to 6th at the moment.
Another poor starter, again a perennial poor starter this year has been Panis. He's down to 14th. So that's why several of them moved up a place halfway around the first lap.
You can see Michael Schumacher pushing very, very hard on that brand new set of Bridgestone tyres. He leads his brother Ralf Schumacher. Jenson Button 3rd, Sato 4th, 5th is Trulli, 6th Webber, 7th Coulthard, 8th Jacques Villeneuve on his return to Formula 1, 9th Fisichella, 10th Alonso as they go across the start-finish line. Down in 11th place is Kimi Raikkonen. He's made up only one spot then off the grid. Juan Montoya, he too has gone up one place from 13th to 12th. You can see that he's got Rubens Barrichello, his very good friend, right behind him in 13th. Barrichello, a good start for him now, up 2 places at the start.
As long and as fast and technical as this racetrack is, very little overtaking opportunity. You just got to be super brave into the final chicane, and even then the normal racing line is to use both sides of the track during the braking zone itself. But at the moment, look at the lead the 2 Schumacher brothers are pulling out. They were a full 3 seconds clear, and that looked like a BAR with some, it's a bit tardy on its gear shift, but he's still right up there with Jenson Button. That's Sato we're on board with then, the long sweeping right-hander. Before, it's very bumpy in there, and again, without full control of the ride height, the plank hits the ground. You can see the yellow stuff on the racetrack as the cars are bottoming out, and there we are. BAR then 3rd and 4th at the moment.
Yep, Jenson Button has done exactly what he didn't do 2 weeks ago in China, and that's had a cracking start. He dropped 2 places last week, and off the grid in China, and that really compromised his Grand Prix. Still managed to fight his way through to 2nd place, but here today he's already got himself up into 3rd place, and he will be targeting that Williams of Ralf Schumacher, because let's face it, BAR Honda has been faster all season than the Williams. So Jenson looking at again, trying to get at least 2nd place here this afternoon, but how much would he like a win? Big scrap going on there between Jacques Villeneuve and Giancarlo Fisichella in the Sauber. That's a battle for the final points position, 8th place. Fisichella lining him up.
Yeah, that should be side by side down into turn 1. We're not going to see it, unfortunately, but not able to do anything about it. Or did he get through? No, Fisichella did get through. Missed that action. And now then, that's Alonso with the full attention of Kimi Raikkonen behind him. Raikkonen taking a little bit of time to get up to speed. And interestingly, Michael Schumacher and Ralf Schumacher in the 133s, everybody else in the 35s and 36s. They're a country mile ahead.
They certainly are. 3.2 seconds. Michael Schumacher is faster than Jacques Villeneuve, and this is how Fisichella did it. We saw him lining him up down the pit straight, and that was candy from the proverbial baby for Fisichella. Everyone expecting this Sauber on the Bridgestone tyres to be very, very strong here this afternoon. Fisichella driving to the points in the last 4 consecutive Grand Prix. What a strong 2004 he's had.
He's moving to Renault, of course, next year, so comfortably passing the car he's moving to. That'll give him something to think about later on today, but not right now, of course. Michael Schumacher's lead was 1.6 ahead of his brother Ralf, and he's 4.9 ahead of 3rd place man Button then already, and we're just on lap 3.
2 seconds a lap faster Michael Schumacher is than Jenson Button at the moment. Look how close Takuma Sato has got to the back of him, and there was a whisper going round in the paddock that Sato had been fueled much lighter than Jenson Button in qualifying. He's on a 3-stopper, that we believe, this afternoon. Button again chancing his arm with a bigger fuel load, as he had done several times very successfully this season, including China 2 weeks ago. If that is the case, Sato does not want to be behind him in the early stages of this Grand Prix, that's for sure. But unfortunately for him, off the line, Jenson had the better start.
Schumacher's lead over 3rd place man Button, now 6.4 then at the end of lap 3. A man doing well, we've not mentioned him, Jarno Trulli, P5 in the Toyota, his first Grand Prix for this most bizarre situation where we've got drivers moving before the end of the season. We saw Webber getting away very poorly in the Jaguar, and that is how Button cleared teammate Sato around the outside of turn 1. We're on board with Sato now. See the Jaguar disappearing behind us off to the left, and Button already flashing up alongside, and then leaves it later on the braking. Just squeezes his teammate up onto the curb. Totally legitimate.
And what's interesting is he had to go around Mark Webber to do that, Jenson Button, because Webber had obviously got bogged down off the start line. Sato just a straight run down, but because he was on the dirty side of the track, clearly lost the momentum, didn't get the grip.
Yeah, there's always more grip on the outside, whether it's dirty or clean for some reason. It gives you a better start here. Downhill start, but Button making the best of it. So Michael Schumacher, I think, will be somewhat bemused by all of this. Where are the rest of them, except for his brother? Again, they're still 1.5 to 2 seconds faster than anybody else. Over the line he goes for a 33.7. His brother does a 1 minute 34.2. His gap now then, his lead up to 2.3 seconds. Button clears the line now. He's 7.7 seconds adrift already.
Yeah, he's just set his best lap of the race so far, but it's still 1.3 seconds slower than the pace of Michael Schumacher. Again, the rumour in the paddock, these Bridgestone tyres on the Ferrari likely to allow the Ferraris only to do short stints, so possibly a 3-stop strategy for Ferrari. We'll have to see how that plays out. This is the ding-dong battle, though, between Villeneuve 9th, Alonso 10th, Raikkonen 11th, and Montoya 12th. What a Fab Four that is, on track at the same time together.
They're 17 seconds off the lead, though, and I suspect it wouldn't surprise me if Renault don't, although Alonso's falling back a little bit there, if Renault don't start to think about easing him past Villeneuve in the next few laps, because there's certainly a traffic jam building, and it's hurting Rubens Barrichello badly too. He's 18.6 seconds behind his teammate. We've got news from Ted.
There is a bit of concern on the BAR pit wall, Martin. They need Jensen to close the gap to Ralph. They're sure they've got more fuel on board than Ralph, but they really can't afford for him to get too far ahead. But as you were saying, if Sato is lighter than Button, then Button actually is starting to hold Sato up.
It's possible, Ted. Yeah, it certainly looked like that in the first 2 or 3 laps. I absolutely agree with you. Last time around, as it happens, Jensen was 0.3 faster, so he stretched his lead to about 0.7 over Sato. So maybe that scenario's fading away. This one most definitely isn't, with the 2 Renaults.
It's a terrific scrap this. We're also looking at Rubens Barrichello in the background. He's trying to get past Olivier Panis in his final Grand Prix. In his career, he's done it. You can see into the chicane, the top of your pictures there. He's got himself up then into 13th place, has Rubens Barrichello. Clearly must have had some sort of problem, because he was 13th a couple of laps ago. As Mark Webber there comes under some pressure from David Coulthard. Battles right throughout the field then. Coulthard 7th, Webber in 6th, and the McLaren looking a lot more racy at the moment than the Jaguar in front of him.
Well, we better hope the 2 Schumacher boys are on a 3-stopper and some of these others are on 2. Otherwise, it's just a 2-horse race already, subject to reliability, because they're just miles faster than anybody else. Interestingly, on lap 5, Michael posting just about his slowest race lap. So you begin to wonder, are his tyre pressures escaping out of control? Are the tyres beginning to grain a little bit? That's unusual. The fuel load, of course, is burning down quickly, but he's going more slowly. Here then is Barrichello passing Panis for what becomes 13th place for Rubens Barrichello. Pretty standard, come off 1/30 faster, get up the inside line, block his turn in, take the place.
This is lap 6 then. You're looking at the Villeneuve, Alonso, Raikkonen, Montoya, and now Barrichello battle. Fab 4 becomes a Fab 5. Michael Schumacher leading on lap 6 from his brother Ralph, 2.5 seconds behind. Jenson Button is 9 seconds behind the race leader, with teammate Sato right behind him. Trulli 5th, 6th is Webber, 7th is Coulthard, and 8th at the moment, Giancarlo Fisichella. This is lap 9 of the Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka. We haven't seen it, not quite sure how it happened, out on the circuit somewhere, unseen by the local TV director. Takuma Sato passed Jenson Button. Maybe it was Button letting him go through. Possibly he had, we believe, less fuel on board than Button, and Button realising that let him through. But at the moment, Sato is substantially faster than Button at the moment. And also we've got Montoya has passed Raikkonen for 11th place further back. In that scrap with Alonso, Villeneuve, Montoya, Raikkonen and Barrichello, Montoya passed Raikkonen. Ted, what can you tell us?
Yes, James, down at BAR, that was a team decision. As we said, Sato is lighter than Button. Button was holding Sato up. The team asked Jenson to let his teammate through, and he did it.
It cost him horribly, though, because they were about a second apart. But on that lap, Jenson did a 1 minute 37.4 when the leader, Michael Schumacher, is doing 1:33s. You know, Grand Prix are won and lost by a tenth or two. Give up 4 seconds in one lap to let your teammate through. Team orders, theoretically, are forbidden. They can do it elegantly, but the radios are monitored and recorded. But obviously, somehow or other, they've given the instruction or the code or let it be known that they wanted Sato passed. So he's on his way now. Let's see if he's going to do anything with it in terms of pace. There's Button in the background. They did an identical first sector, but Sato is a half a second faster in the second sector. So at the moment, it looks like BAR have done exactly the right thing.
I'm sure they have, but it's up to him, of course, to get past as Ralf Schumacher comes into the pits from second place. This is only lap 10 of the Grand Prix, so very early for Ralf Schumacher. If this stop is anything less than 7 seconds, he's on a definite 3-stopper here this afternoon. We get whacked by one of the pit men. Hard to tell when the nozzle came off there, but look at this, side by side. Coulthard and Mark Webber into turn 1. That looked very close indeed. I don't know who came out in front of that one. Hopefully the director will get his act to go and show it to us as Ralf Schumacher emerges then just in the middle, just around that Renault pack. 8th, 9th place, having made that pit stop. In comes Jarno Trulli, his first pit stop behind the wheel of Olivier Panis, I beg your pardon. His first pit stop behind his pit stop for the Grand Prix, his final Grand Prix. And, well, he's drifted out of the equation, really, hasn't he, down in 16th place.
There'll be a lot of people relieved to see Ralf Schumacher pitting so early, and they'll be very much hoping Michael does the same very, very soon, because he's just walking away at the front of the field. But Coulthard being very much tucked up behind Webber now. A good scrap going on there. I would suspect he wasn't quite close enough to make that move in turn 1. And at the end of the first sector, indeed, he's still behind Webber. So Webber 6th, Coulthard 7th. Fisichella a fraction behind him. And Alonso, having now cleared Villeneuve, he's 5.8 seconds clear of his teammate now, has cruised straight up to the back of the Trulli, Webber, Coulthard and Fisichella fight.
So Schumacher, here he is, leading on lap 11. His brother has pitted. He's rejoined in 9th place. Takuma Sato is in 2nd place.
Is that Coulthard through? I think that's Coulthard. Sorry, which one have we got? We're not on board with Coulthard. We're on board with Raikkonen. So, or was it? Let's have a look.
He's got past him.
It was Coulthard.
There's the Jaguar, you can see, and it looks as though now Fisichella is going to have a go into turn 1. Mark Webber, a bit of a sitting duck, nothing he can do about the Sauber into turn 1. Fisichella sweeps through into 6th place. Coulthard is up into 5th. Meanwhile, here's this midfield scrap, absolute clash of the titans here. Some of the biggest names in Grand Prix racing involved in this one. And Ralf Schumacher is in there as well, just in front of Villeneuve, with Montoya behind Villeneuve, Raikkonen then in 12th. 13th Barrichello and Massa in the 2nd Sauber. You can see just tagging onto the tail of this bunch. What a scrap.
It is a scrap, and Raikkonen's car looks horrible. He was really struggling. A lot of oversteer in that McLaren of Kimi Raikkonen. He's fallen back rather than gone forward as we might have expected. But Barrichello then, in that traffic, now 37 seconds adrift of his teammate. Michael Schumacher leads. Barrichello is 13th, 37 seconds apart, and they're only on lap 11.
Yep, and Jacques Villeneuve at the moment down in 10th place. His teammate Alonso up to 8th. And Villeneuve lapping 1.2 seconds a lap slower than Alonso at this stage of the Grand Prix, which is a similar sort of what we saw in Shanghai. So Villeneuve's return to the cockpit with Renault at the moment, you have to say, is not going all that brilliantly. Alonso really extending this car, but Villeneuve not getting the most out of it. He said on Thursday it's a tricky little thing to drive this Renault. Alonso obviously has had a season of getting used to it, but Villeneuve struggling at the moment. As Sato crosses the line then, lap 12, he's 18.5 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, but 3 seconds ahead of teammate Jenson Button. Williams getting ready then for Juan Montoya. He hasn't stopped yet. Only Ralf Schumacher and Olivier Panis have made a stop. There's Webber in the Jaguar. This is lap 12, so bang on target for the short first stint. There you can see Montoya coming in as well. And one of the Saubers, I believe that's Felipe Massa, pitting from 14.
Okay, so no sign then of leader Michael Schumacher pitting. He's 18.5 seconds clear of Sato in second. Button now 2.9 behind Sato, but gradually picking up speed. If we're right, then they are on different strategies. Still not looking too bad for Jenson. I suspect he'll be a bit disgruntled at that 4 seconds he had to give away to let his teammate through. Unseen, unfortunately, by the TV cameras.
Glock in the Jordan, standing in for Pantano, who's been dismissed by the Jordan team. This is the second race in a row that the German driver Timo Glock has come in to drive that second Jordan alongside Nick Heidfeld. Button then 21 seconds behind Michael Schumacher at this stage of the Grand Prix, and if we're right, he's on a two-stopper to Michael's 3. That's pretty much exactly the margin, the difference. He's going to make one less pit stop than Michael Schumacher, who's just set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, so I imagine his stop is not a million miles away. But if Button just can keep the pace up as Sato pits, if Button can keep the pace up, he's not going to be a million miles away from Michael Schumacher unless Schumacher has one of those spectacular mid-race charges. Here comes Sato into the box. Lap 13, bang on target for the schedule. They've short-fueled him. That looks like a three-stopper to me, Martin, so it's going to be very interesting. The two BARs, we believe, on different strategies. There's Ferrari getting ready for one of their two drivers. Rubens Barrichello is the first Ferrari to dive into the pit lane. From 11th place, Rubens Barrichello.
Yes, he's out of position not because of heavy fuel, but because of a mistake in qualifying, and has he paid for that in the traffic? As he pitted, it was 43.9 seconds now behind his teammate, including, of course, negotiating the pit lane. And he comes out well behind Montoya. So just a man who was on a hat-trick, really. A hat-trick of Grand Prix victories, Rubens Barrichello. Not looking good from here, is it? And that is Villeneuve then with a recovering Sato tapped up behind Villeneuve. That'll not help his afternoon too much.
But it'll be interesting to see whether Barrichello, when Raikkonen makes a stop, it'll be interesting to see whether Barrichello has leapfrogged Raikkonen, because he was certainly stuck behind him before this first round of pit stops. In comes the leader then on lap 13. Michael Schumacher comes down the pit lane speed limiter on, chugging along right to the very end. The Ferrari box, their position as world champions, gives them the first pit box in Formula One, and the clockwork action of the team. That's pretty much bang on a three-stop kind of amount of fuel that's gone in, and out he comes. Which of the two BARs is that one that crosses the line? Jenson Button. So you see, that's interesting. He was able to pit and rejoin in front of Button, just in front. So that's about the margin, 22 seconds, as we say.
Yeah, Michael, then, the story now is just how far can Button go and how quick can he be with it? Well, Michael's got some fuel on board, and Michael Schumacher would be delighted to see that. Absolutely delighted to see that he's in front of the BAR, and now they've got the same number of stops to go, but Jenson will have to, at some point, be carrying a heavier fuel load.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way it works is that a three-stop strategy is a shortish first stint followed by 3 15-lap stints to take you through to the 53. As we look at Villeneuve and Sato being very, very aggressive just after having made his stop. And that's a neat pass by Takuma Sato to take 6th place. A two-stopper is a shortish first stint with 2 20-lap stints. And what happens is the two strategies converge around about the time of the third stop. So that's where Button's got to have a strong middle part of this race to have any chance of contesting the victory with Michael Schumacher, basically, hasn't he?
Yeah, he has indeed. But that was a crucial pass for Takuma Sato. He could not afford 3 or 4 laps behind Villeneuve's Renault, and he really made that one stick nicely, didn't he? Superb driving there from Sato. He just knew he couldn't afford to be parked there for any longer than half a lap.
He's in 6th place then at the moment. Ralf Schumacher, having pitted, rejoined in front of him, is 5th. Alonso 4th, yet to make a stop. Coulthard is up into 3rd place, looking for his first podium finish of 2004. He's in 3rd at the moment. Button is 2nd. as into the pits comes 5th place Fernando Alonso.
Coulthard's looking handy. Now driving, now lapping half second faster than Button on a similar strategy, just 8.4 seconds behind him. So Coulthard really got nice balance, it would seem, as the Renault leaves and Raikkonen pits then in the McLaren from 8th place.
This is lap 15 then. Raikkonen carrying a bit more fuel into qualifying than others. Very slow getting the hose off though. That's not a particularly good stop for the McLaren team. They won't be very happy about that. It's been a slightly uncomfortable race, isn't it, as he rejoins there. Felipe Massa is going to be just behind him. Massa in 15th place. And that means that, I think, it means that Barrichello has leapfrogged Raikkonen, which is important for Barrichello. Remember, he was held up by Raikkonen. He was in that big train of cars with Villeneuve, with Montoya, before the first round of pit stops. Barrichello has leapfrogged Raikkonen now. Rubens Barrichello up to 13th place.
Big fight going on then. This is just catching hold of so many changes now that they've pit stopped. There then is the crew getting ready for what must be Jenson Button, as Michael Schumacher still steaming around there in the 133s. Coulthard the only other man in the 33s. Button pits now. And let's see where he rejoins on the racetrack. Ted can take us through the pit stop.
Absolutely crucial. It's happening right in front of me. Jenson hits his marks very well. Ralf Schumacher's his target, I believe, in this stop. It's going well, of course. The first of 2 stops for Jenson. Let's see how he gets away. That's a good getaway. 9.2 seconds. Remember how slow he was in China getting away. They fixed that problem at VAR.
Coulthard and Villeneuve also pitting on the same lap. There is Jacques Villeneuve, who had got himself up into 6th place as a result of all the changes, but he's going to drop well back after this. But the crucial thing is, where is Jenson Button going to feed back into the system? Certainly expecting to be somewhere around 7th place. Christian Klien is 7th at the moment in the Jaguar. He has yet to make a stop. Only one of the front runners now who has yet to make a pit stop this afternoon, Christian Klien. So again, that qualifying lap of his, Martin, not too bad in light of how much fuel he's carrying.
Now, he did a good job this morning in, I think, the most challenging conditions I've ever seen in 22 years of coming to Grand Prix. I can't imagine a tougher job than these guys have had today. Quali 1 this morning, then followed by qualifying 2. Changing track, totally unknown setup. He hadn't driven the circuit before, had Klien. And it's just been a brilliant day. It's been so much better to have action on a Sunday morning. Everybody came in with a purpose this morning instead of wobbling in and getting their sleepies out of their eyes because nothing happens until the cars go to the grid. It's been much better.
Yeah, I wonder if Bernie Eccleston will be looking at this. He's always wanted to have 2-day Grand Prix weekends with lots happening on Sunday, but I imagine the circuit owners, they want to spread it out a bit longer. And someone's off the road, one of the Saubers, and it's Fisichella for once. His teammate, he loses part of his bodywork there as well. Teammate Mass has been off the road 3 times this weekend. That's Fisichella's first off-piste excursion, but and he's come right up in front of, I believe, Raikkonen. Raikkonen was 14th, but well, I'm not quite sure. It looked like Kimi Raikkonen. There's Rubens Barrichello, currently in 13th place with Juan Montoya in front of him. So at the moment, the second Ferrari struggling really in midfield, not able to break into the top 10.
So back end getting away from him. He had to start edging, turning right when he wanted to go left just to keep the back end under control. That's unusual. It's an unforced error there from Fisichella. Don't often see him throwing it off the road too much these days.
Yes, he's been driving beautifully recently. That's cost him that. The question we're asking is, where did Jenson Button feed back in again after his pit stop, his late pit stop relative to the others? The answer is in 4th place. Michael Schumacher leading on lap 17. Brother Ralph 16.5 seconds behind him now. That gap has really opened up as a result of that first round of pit stops. Sato 24 seconds behind the race leader, and Button 27 seconds behind the race leader. And this next middle phase of the race now, absolutely crucial for Button to get a good result here this afternoon. But David Coulthard has done himself a lot of favours with the strategy he's on this afternoon. 2-stop strategy for him from the looks of things. And he's up into 5th place now, having started 8th on the grid. 6th is Alonso, 7th is Trulli, and still 8th is Christian Klien. lap 20 of the Japanese Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher now almost 20 seconds up the road from his brother Ralph. You're looking at the battle for 7th place between Trulli, Montoya and Barrichello, as out of the pits comes Mark Webber. That's his 2nd stop of the afternoon, so obviously not happy with the tyres or something on the car anyway after his 1st stop. He was passed just a moment ago by Juan Montoya for 8th place, the final points-paying position after Christian Klein in the other Jaguar had made his 1st pit stop of the afternoon. He was 8th, he's now dropped down into 16th place. You can see here that Montoya and Barrichello quite a bit quicker at this stage of the Grand Prix than Jarno Trulli in the Toyota in front of them. And well, people say you can't overtake at Suzuka, but we've seen plenty of action into turn 1 here this afternoon, and looks like Montoya pretty close up to Trulli, but not quite close enough. And well, turn 1 seems to be quite popular today.
Certainly for Montoya, he's got good straight line speed and good exit off the final chicane. He left Barrichello for dead down that pit straight, as if Rubens had just got too much wing on the Ferrari. They're 50 seconds behind the leader. They're running 8th and 9th. That just demonstrates to you the incredible pace of Michael Schumacher, and Ralph back in the 31-minute 33s as well now, but they're just long gone at the front end. But there's 2 good scraps. You've got Button, Coulthard and Alonso shaping up in 4th, 5th and 6th. This is the best one though. Truly Montoya, Barrichello all very close, within 7/10 of a second. And look, this is the hustling and jostling that's going on as they lap the Minardi.
Yeah, beautiful rearward shot then from Jarno Trulli's car. He initially said he didn't want to race for Toyota this weekend, but after a couple of tests, he changed his mind. Montoya running wide there, getting a little bit close up the back of Trulli. Trulli has already made a pit stop. Looks like the Toyota team are ready for one of their drivers. Ted, what can you tell us?
Well, I'm down at Jaguar, James. Very strange problem for Mark Webber. He says something's burning him in the car. He feels very hot. It's burning him through his fire suit. He came in for that stop. The mechanics were sort of digging around in the seat area, trying to see if they could find what it was. They couldn't, but they have cleared a space for him in the garage. I hope they don't have to retire him, but that's a possibility.
I wonder if it's because if the car's bottoming out, the skid blocks get incredibly hot underneath the driver. I know David Coulthard's had massive blisters when he's got out of the car. It depends on exactly the ride height of the car and where the skid blocks are. That's one possibility. I would have thought if it's like a wiring or something like that getting hot, the car would have failed by now. But unusual problem then for Mark Webber, and explains his unscheduled 2nd stop.
Yeah, don't ask where the blisters might be. These cars run very, very close to the ground. Panis then making the 2nd stop of the afternoon on lap 21 in the Toyota. That was all fairly routine for him. His last outing in a Grand Prix car. As Michael Schumacher goes across the start-finish line. And what's really impressive, Martin, is he's just pumping in these 1-minute 33s, mid 1-minute 33s, lap after lap after lap, so consistently. Anyone who had any doubts about whether this guy was off the boil in Monza and China 2 weeks ago, take a look at this, because that's very impressive. Also impressive, you have to say, is the pace of Ralf Schumacher. He's getting himself into the 133s as well, but they're the only people that are remotely in that zone.
Yep, in terms of the 2 Schumacher brothers, they're Premier League today, and everybody else is very much First Division. Coulthard now just 1.9 behind Jenson Button. The 2 Brits are going to be very much line astern, and Sato creeping away now. Different strategy, of course, and we're down to Ted.
I'm down at Jaguar. Retirement. Mark Webber is out of the Japanese Grand Prix. He's getting out. He looks in pain. They're looking again at the seat. I think you may well be right. Maybe it's a ride height issue. Of course, Martin, ride height's such an important factor in the rain. They had to get them just right. But Mark has just talking to his engineer. He's almost in tears, I can tell you. He says it was just too much to carry on.
Well, he'll not be sitting down much on the aeroplane home tonight if I was right and that was the problem, but something's burning him in there anyway. But well, the physio's got a job on his hands there, hasn't he?
Yeah, big disappointment for Jaguar though. Webber qualifying 3rd on the grid, another ray of hope, big morale boost. The team up for sale. Ford Motor Company deciding to pull out of Formula One at the end of this season. They've put what is a very good team indeed. 350 people there in Milton Keynes. Worked very hard since the Jackie Stewart days, Stewart Ford, and they've had good years and bad years over the time that they've been known as Jaguar Racing, but they would love to have gone out on a high today with perhaps 1 or 2 points. But Webber, well, the car just not quick enough when it really counted. He was a bit of a sitting duck for Montoya, who's now trying to get himself past Jarno Trulli, and it's retirement, the first retirement then of the afternoon, amazingly, for Mark Webber. And well, this is the battle for 7th, 8th and 9th. And, well, Jarno Trulli is lapping about 2.5 seconds slower than Michael Schumacher. Montoya close, though, on the run down to the chicane, alongside him, Barrichello along the back as well. Montoya's gone too deep, and has Barrichello got past Montoya? Yes, he has. Barrichello kind of saw that coming, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He was in the perfect place there. Montoya had to try and make the move, and now he's under pressure from a recovering Fisichella, who bounced across the gravel trap, and Fisichella makes it stick too, and Barrichello goes through on Trulli. Trulli's been holding them all up quite badly, and that is a major result for Rubens Barrichello. I think it's going to help his points, but he's 59 seconds behind his teammate now. But at least for the first time this afternoon, Rubens Barrichello can let that Ferrari go.
Yeah, he's 23 seconds though off a podium finish, and I'm sure that will be his target now. He is up into 7th place. And Takuma Sato, currently the final podium position, as you can see there on your screens, in 3rd place. And he's 24 seconds up the road from Rubens Barrichello. So that's Rubens' target. A big, big push for him.
The Toyota's a bit like the Jaguar. I think it works its new tyres very well and gives good... here we are then. Barrichello making the most. He's already passed Montoya one corner earlier. Good straight line speed. Montoya absolutely his back foot. The Sauber's quick in the straight line anyway. And all changing. Two position changes and 3 position changes, all within about 400 metres. Great racing this afternoon. And Sato at 34 seconds adrift in 3rd place from Michael Schumacher, 5.2 ahead of his teammate now. Still think they're on different strategies. Is this our second retirement? Looks very much the case, doesn't it? And Coulthard getting ever closer to 4th place man Button.
Yeah, Timo Glock there in the Jordan, off the track, but seems to have found a gear. I don't know what that was. He's down at the Degner curves, the 2 right-handers under the bridge. That's where the track, actually, the figure of 8, and that bridge you just saw above Glock, that's where the track passes overhead. It's just before the 130R corner. This is the only track in modern Formula 1 where we have a figure of 8. There it is again, that bridge. And that's a high-speed straight just passing up above. This track, Martin, has absolutely hairpin bend. It has a chicane, fast corners, straights. It's really a tremendous challenge, a wonderful S's as well. And all the drivers really revelling in it this afternoon. This dry conditions for the first time this weekend. Michael Schumacher leading on lap 24 by 20 seconds from his brother, with Sato 3rd, Button 4th, Coulthard 5th, now just 1.3 seconds behind Jenson Button. Alonso 6th, and Barrichello 7th, and Trulli in 8th place.
We've got a great fight coming up. Button, Coulthard, Alonso, and now Barrichello straight into the 1-minute 33s as Ralf Schumacher pits for the 2nd time. But Barrichello flying now and almost matching the pace of Michael Schumacher. And so we're going to see him cruising right up there, I think, in, as I say, in the Button, Coulthard, Alonso scrap. Ralph pits then, just seems... It's very slippery down there. You go through a rain gully as well as you come towards your mechanic. It's so easy to dive in there too quickly and mow down half your men. You really have to take it easy here at Suzuka on the pit stop. And there then is Button and Coulthard. Ralph goes out behind them, and that's quite important too, because they've all got to stop the same amount of times now. So that's looking good for Button and Coulthard.
It certainly is, because they're, yes, exactly, they're on 2-stop strategies, Button and Coulthard, where Ralf Schumacher is on a 3. So he really needed to get out in front of these 2 guys, much as Michael Schumacher did in the first round of pit stops. He has not managed to do that. When is Jenson Button going to make his first stop? Well, he was quite late, his second stop rather. He was quite late with the first one. It was lap 15. And, well, I'd expect him to be coming in around about lap 33 or 34. So that's not for another 8 or 9 laps, Martin. That Ralf Schumacher now is stuck behind the 2-stopping Coulthard and Button. That's a big compromise for him.
Yeah. Coulthard down to just 0.9 of a second adrift of Jenson Button. It's going to be a good scrap there anytime soon. Fisichella remained ahead of Montoya. Montoya slipped back to P10 then. Jarno Trulli just hanging on there in 8th in the Toyota.
I'll tell you the other thing that signifies, Ralf Schumacher in that position. It's great news, a bit of a lock-up there for, you can see that's Montoya in 10th place. The other thing about that, Ralf coming out there, is Sato is in the box seats now, isn't he? Because he's well up the road from those 2. 5.5 seconds up the road from Button, going very quickly on a 3-stop strategy. He is racing Ralf Schumacher here this afternoon. He was 10 seconds behind him before Ralf made that pit stop. Let's monitor how those 2 go along, because that's going to be very, very interesting indeed.
So yes, he stopped 3 laps. Sato stopping 3 laps after Ralph last time around, so we can expect him in the next lap or two. Toyota getting ready for Panis has already been in twice, so we can only assume that's for Jarno Trullo. Panis out of sync with one of those, complaining to the team on the radio about handling problems we're hearing from the F1 ITV pit crew, and indeed it is Jarno Trulli then in the Toyota. His first drive for Toyota.
In he comes. A lot of Toyota employees here this weekend. They own their own racetrack at Mount Fuji. Remember back in 1976 where James Hunt won the World Championship there in the rain? Well, they've bought it. They've spent a lot of money on doing it up, and their boss here in Formula One, Tomita-san, was saying on Friday that he wants to take the Japanese Grand Prix there as Michael Schumacher pits on lap 27, the race leader. He's got a big margin in his pocket over Takuma Sato. He will be able to rejoin comfortably in the lead here this afternoon. The battle really, I think, is between Sato and Ralf Schumacher for second place, and Button and Coulthard for third place in this Grand Prix this afternoon. But don't rule out Button and Coulthard if they find a bit more pace. Don't rule out them also being in that scrap for second here this afternoon. Michael Schumacher looks pretty comfortable at the front, but a four-way battle possibly for second place here this afternoon.
Depends on how Alonso and Barrichello keep moving up as well. They might even make it a 5- or 6-way battle. Sato pits from second place then. He's on a 3-stopper, remember. So one more to come after this. Should be 6-7 seconds. And we've missed him going away. So spot on then. And away he goes.
Okay, lap 27 as Sato rejoins in front of Rubens Barrichello. That was important, but it shows you how much Barrichello, how much progress he's making here this afternoon. Still to make his second stop though, Rubens Barrichello, so that's quite important. Sato rejoining. That is the top 8 as we are at half distance in the Japanese Grand Prix. 25 laps to go in this 53-lap Japanese Grand Prix. Rubens Barrichello exits the pits, and from 7th place before he came in. Juan Montoya was behind him in 8th place, albeit 9 seconds behind him. It looks like that gap has been maintained as he rejoins in front of the Sauber, I beg your pardon, of Giancarlo Fisichella, who was in 11th place then, having just made his 2nd stop of the afternoon. Michael Schumacher has stopped twice. He's in the lead by 21 seconds from Jenson Button, who has stopped once on a different strategy from Michael Schumacher. They both have one more pit stop to make. David Coulthard is in 3rd place, but dropping back a little bit now from Jenson Button, having got quite close to him just earlier on. And Ralf Schumacher is in 4th place. He's on a 3-stop strategy here this afternoon. Button and Coulthard on 2 stoppers. Alonso 5th. Sato, we're riding on board with. The 130,000 crowd here at Suzuka, desperate for him to get a podium finish this afternoon. He's in 6th place, and Ted Kravitz down in the pit lane has got news for us.
Just down at Williams, that was good work by the Willies boys, because they jumped Fisichella in those stops. Montoya opted to stay out a lap longer than scheduled. He built up enough of a gap, and he jumped Fisichella in those stops. Good work.
Thanks for that, Ted. I notice it's very windy out there. If you see any flags, they're really fluttering around very strongly. And I suspect if you had an imbalance problem today, we've seen certain drivers really struggling for pace, particularly the 2 Toyota drivers and Mark Webber. And when you're crossing the wind in some of these high-speed corners, dramatically affects the aerodynamics of and consistency of the car. And one thing you need around here is a stable platform to give you some confidence to attack corners like Spoon and 130R. And I think that's why we're seeing such a variation in race pace. We've got between 133s for Michael Schumacher down to sort of 136s and 7s down in P12 and 13. So amazing difference in and that's because they've had 0 time setting these cars up. They've just thrown them on the racetrack. But the reliability is incredible. Just 1 retirement then, and that's because the driver was getting burned in the cockpit. We have not. The Jordan of Glock got going again. So 19 of the 20 runners. That's no practice, and parc fermé conditions, and 1 hot lap in the dry, and the cars seem bulletproof.
It's been a very reliable year generally, hasn't it? Not too many races. We've seen too many retirements these days. If you want to score any points with everybody being reliable, you've got to be reliable yourself. The front runners occupying all the points-paying positions. It's very, very difficult for the midfielders to score any points. Here's a man who'd very much like to score a point on his return to Formula One after a year off. He was in China 2 weeks ago, but couldn't get himself into the top 10. Here today, started in 9th place on the grid, Jacques Villeneuve. He's now still in 9th place. His teammate Alonso, though, he was behind him in 11th on the grid. He's got himself up into 5th. So once again, Alonso using the same car as Villeneuve, but pushing it much, much further up the racetrack. He is almost 30 seconds ahead of Villeneuve at the moment.
Isn't it curious, though, as Barrichello sets a new fastest lap of the race, isn't it curious that Raikkonen can't come to terms with this place? It's never particularly gone well here. He's half a minute behind his teammate at the moment. Coulthard's up in 3rd. And this is the driver circuit almost of all driver circuits, and we just know how brilliant Raikkonen is. But he's not hooked up around here.
No, it's true, isn't it? He admits himself that last year he finished 2nd. But Coulthard had to let him through, didn't he, last year? And to get that 2nd place, he was contesting the World Championship, remember, with Michael Schumacher. But yes, it's not his happiest hunting ground. And as you say, the ultimate driver's track. He didn't have too many problems at Spa, did he, a month ago, where he beat Michael Schumacher in a Ferrari fair and square. But not going so well for him here. Little lock up there for Rubens Barrichello. As Martin just said, just at the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far, a 132.7. And that's just over a second faster than Michael Schumacher's travelling out at the moment. There is Schumacher in the lead, 22 seconds ahead of Jenson Button. Rubens Barrichello, the caption got it wrong. And, well, Barrichello now using the clear air to make hay. That's Raikkonen, though. That's the next man he's going to come across. The computer tells us he's 2 seconds behind him as they go into the 130R corner, but catching him very, very quickly indeed.
That's a new lap record, I reckon. Last year they did a 133.4 in the race, was the fastest race lap. So a 132.7, and maybe it'll be a few years before we see that kind of pace again. They're slowing them down for next year, and then in future years they're talking about much less horsepower. So will we see people approach this kind of pace that Barrichello is on at the moment? Now he's got some free air and aggression, 56 seconds behind his teammate. They're on the same strategy. That's how much time he lost in the traffic.
Well, the man who's really suffering at the moment is Ralf Schumacher. Was running second in the early part of this Grand Prix, but when he made that second pit stop, he came out behind Button and Coulthard, and he lost all the advantage of the new tyres that would have given him. He's behind the two of them. He's lapping. He's definitely quicker than they are, but he's 1.4 behind them at the moment and losing ground, and that's very significant for Button, Coulthard and Sato in their quest for a podium here this afternoon, and it's really painful for Ralf Schumacher. Michael Schumacher leading them, lap 33, 21 to go. He's been peerless here this afternoon, so consistent. I'm really looking forward to seeing the lap time sheet at the end of this Grand Prix, because it'll just be constant 33s all the way through. It's like target practice, just millimetres away from the bullseye every single lap for Michael Schumacher.
Second and hopefully final stop for David Coulthard from what was third place. Ralf Schumacher's passed him on the racetrack as he was bumbling down the pit lane on the rev limiter, and what a good chunk of gas gone in there. That'll see him to the end of the Grand Prix. He's just got to chase Button hard, because I think he's got a chance of being ahead of Ralf Schumacher, and the pair of them should leapfrog Takuma Sato as well. So I think Button and Coulthard could and should be fighting for second and third in this Grand Prix, with a watchful eye on Ralf Schumacher.
Yeah, and Takuma Sato dropped down to 6th place now behind Fernando Alonso. Quite sure what happened there. Must have happened down on the track some time ago, but he was in front of Alonso, Takuma Sato. The wind's gone out of his sails a little bit. His pace just dropped off. He's half a second slower than Alonso, and well, he's more or less on the same sort of pace as Button, but dropping back a little bit. Takuma Sato, I completely agree with you. I think Button and Coulthard are looking very, very good for podium finishes here this afternoon.
Yes, when they make theoretical races on the computer, they can't factor in too well exactly who you're going to get tucked up behind as you exit, who's having a good day or a bad day or whatever. And if you're on a three-stop and you do get held up behind somebody, you just waste your advantage. You lose, you know, if it's theoretically, could even be just 4 seconds faster over a race distance, they'll still go for it, but it does rely on clear racetrack.
Well, you can see the BAR mechanics there coming out onto the pit apron. That will be for Jenson Button for his second stop of the afternoon. He started David Coulthard before. We've seen Coulthard make his stop. Alonso has dived into the pits from 5th place. And, well, if Button has a good stop, he'll come out just behind Takuma Sato.
He's gone round. Jenson Button carried on round, despite the mechanics very clearly waiting there for him. And Alonso then, again, a regular fill, nothing spectacular, neat, tidy, just what they need to do.
I was saying, there he is, feeding back out. That's Rubens Barrichello in the Ferrari, so that's another place that Barrichello's made up. Fernando Alonso, who was up the road from him before that second round of stops. But Button, well, the strategies are going to converge around the time that the 3 stoppers make their final stop, and on that basis, Button is definitely going to get himself ahead of Sato. And looking pretty good here this afternoon. Yeah,
Button in the 1 minute 33s as well now that we've talked so much about, but he's really pumping in his best stuff just at a very, very good time. And the mechanics we're hearing have gone back in to the garage, which is somewhat curious.
Certainly is. Button stopped on lap 15, first time round. We predicted him coming back in around 34 or 35. This is lap 35. There is Takuma Sato, using all of the racetrack and a bit more to put a lap on the Minardi there of Gianmaria Bruni. 304 kilometers an hour through 130R. That's pretty fast. That's not far off 200 miles an hour.
Yeah, they were pretty pumped up, weren't they? Absolutely pumped up, the Japanese fans. Sato was looking good and Toyota were looking good, but unfortunately Toyota down in 12th and 16th at the moment, and Sato in great danger of not being on the podium at this stage. We'll see how it shakes out as Renault get ready for what should be the final stop for Villeneuve.
Now BAR are going to have to get Jenson Button in and get him back out again in the gap between Sato and Coulthard. At the moment Sato's 4th and Coulthard is 5th, and there's 8 seconds between them. That's what they're going to try and insert Jenson Button back out into. It'll be very interesting to watch as Villeneuve pits from 11th place now.
Yeah, and looking at that as we watch Villeneuve, you saw as they go over the rain gully there, your front wheel locks up. Nothing you can do about that. You just have to approach your pit garage more carefully. But it's interesting because Ralf Schumacher is 23 seconds ahead of Coulthard with one more stop to make. He can get in and out in that time, can't he? So it is very close between Ralf Schumacher, Jenson Button and David Coulthard.
Yep, that's the battle for second, third and fourth place on the racetrack. Sato, is he involved in that battle as well? Possibly not. He seems to have lost a little bit of time in this stint of the Grand Prix, Takuma Sato. Remember, he was released by the BAR team. He was stuck up behind Jenson Button. They let him through. Here is Button. This is an important stop here this afternoon. Ted Kravitz, take us through it.
Here we go then, Jenson Button, hotter than the wasabi into that pit box, but it's a good on the marks there. The tyres are on. This is going to be so tight with Coulthard. He can't afford to lose any time here. That's a good getaway though by Jenson Button.
There goes Takuma Sato, as we said. He's going to fill it in right behind Sato. Coulthard up at the top of your screens in the McLaren, I believe. That's him coming down. Yes, there he is. So comfortably back out in front. He had a couple of seconds margin over Coulthard before Coulthard made his second stop. So Button back out and looking very good here for second place yet again in a Grand Prix this weekend. Michael Schumacher seems bulletproof at the front. But Jenson Button is looking very good indeed at the moment with just 18 laps to go here in Suzuka. Just 16 laps to go in the penultimate Grand Prix of the 2004 Formula One World Championship. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. It's been a terrific race here at Suzuka after, well, a frankly very strange weekend. A typhoon was supposed to hit us yesterday afternoon. They cancelled all track activity. The first time ever. Qualifying then shifted to Sunday morning. It's been a very, very busy day here at Suzuka. It started out wet. The track has dried out throughout the morning, but qualifying was a journey into the unknown for all the drivers. And this race has been held under dry conditions, sunny conditions, And Michael Schumacher has shown everybody who's boss, having had a quietish weekend in Monza and a very poor weekend by his standards in China, finishing in his worst ever finishing position, 12th 2 weeks ago. He's bounced back spectacularly here today. Pole position this morning. He's driven away at the front. He's been a second a lap faster than pretty much everybody else. We've got, however, a tremendous battle between Ralf Schumacher, Jenson Button, David Coulthard, and possibly even Sato and Barrichello as well. But certainly 3 drivers battling for second and third, the final podium positions. And they're on different strategies here this afternoon. Ralf Schumacher, Sato, and Barrichello all on 3-stoppers. Barrichello was on a 3-stopper, but he's bent the front left suspension. Wow.
And it's Coulthard. It's Coulthard that he's hit. They were pretty close they're on a different strategy, but they were close on the racetrack, and it looks like retirement for David Coulthard. What a shame. It's his right front. They've been quite clear. What's unusual there is it was Ruben's left front. They must have been side by side somewhere. Ruben's left front and DC's right front. So quite clearly they've gone side by side, I suspect, in the final chicane. Ted, do you know anything?
Yes, I'm down at McLaren. It's all over for David Coulthard. It's the front right suspension. It's all askew. Rubens Barrichello very, very slowly into the pits. That also looks terminal, but we'll have to wait and see. Oh, but then Michael Schumacher's right behind him.
Yeah, they wanted Barrichello out of the way there, desperately wanted him out of the way because Michael Schumacher was coming in for a stop. There was no danger of the two colliding. Barrichello didn't realise that Schumacher, his teammate, was right behind him. Schumacher rejoins comfortably after his third and final stop of the afternoon. Well, we saw Mark Webber also retiring earlier on as Rubens Barrichello climbs out of his car, and Webber is talking now with Louise Goodman.
Yeah, Mark's cooled down enough to come out and have a chat with us. Nothing too singed, I hope, Mark.
No, the skin is starting to break, but it was really strange, really bloody frustrating because to have a driver retirement after all the effort that goes in, it's really frustrating. But after 6 or 7 laps, the right-hand side of the seat was incredibly hot, and I thought it would stay there. I thought, man, if I can stay here, I'll be okay. But after the first stop, it just getting hotter and hotter and hotter, and the seat belt buckle was on the right-hand side was just like really, really hot water on my skin. And the guys tried with some water down my back at one of the stops, but it was not working.
Any idea what was causing it?
Well, we've had smaller situations in testing in the past, but nothing as extreme as this. Obviously, it's the first time we run this weekend in these sort of conditions, but very strange that even now the seat is very different side to side in terms of temperature. So,
thanks, Mark.
Well, bad news then for Mark Webber. We're just trying to work out what's going on between Ralf Schumacher and Jenson Button while we were hearing that.
Yeah, it looked to me very much as though Ralf Schumacher making a stop. He'd had a very strong run leading up to his third and final pit stop of the afternoon. He came out behind Takuma Sato, who's yet to make his third and final stop of the afternoon. But crucially, Ralf came out in front of Jenson Button. So Button has not been quick enough in this third stint. And that means Ralf Schumacher is now the favourite to finish second here this afternoon. And Button is going to have to, well, he's going to have to pass him on the racetrack. 13 to go here at Suzuka, and quite a significant change there. Waiting to see it on the racetrack. But I believe that Ralf Schumacher is a second or two ahead of Jenson Button.
Yeah, he'd certainly had the pace in the middle part of the race, and Jenson had been struggling and still continues to struggle in the 135s. Coulthard was struggling for pace when he went out, and so was Alonso. They've all put a new set of Michelins on, and they've just not had the pace. And what's happened between Coulthard and Barrichello, we don't know exactly where or how the contact finally took place. But you had Coulthard out on a fresh tyres with a fuel load. Barrichello was coming to the very end of his stint with a quick car, and they've met in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, I have to say the Japanese TV director hasn't done us too many favours here this afternoon. A lot of stuff has gone on, and hasn't even shown us a replay of it, but there has been a clash for sure, almost certainly under braking into the chicane between Rubens Barrichello and David Coulthard. I think I'm right in saying that's the first time this year, yes it is, that Rubens Barrichello has failed to finish a Grand Prix. So his amazing reliability record comes to an end here at Suzuka, where he won last year dramatically. And coming off the back of a 2-race winning streak for Barrichello in Monza and in Shanghai. It's a bit of a bitter pill for him to swallow. Nevertheless, Ferrari still happy. They've got their man out front. No one's going to get close to Michael Schumacher. But still, a good scrap for second and third here this afternoon.
And Louise is down with Rubens right now.
Rubens, tell us exactly what happened there.
Oh, I was coming quite fast to overtake DC, and basically I wanted to get him by surprise because my car was running beautifully on the 130R. So I've done it flat, and then I just got him by surprise. But I don't know if he didn't see or what, but the impact was quite severe because he closed the door. It's difficult to say if it was anybody's fault. It's just that, you know, I couldn't lose much time, and he was like 2 seconds slower, so I had to go for it.
Thanks, Rubens.
I'm just reflecting back on the dinner we all had to get. 2 dinners we had in Phuket last week, DC and Rubens and Felipe and all of that, and it was such a happy affair. But he said he wanted to catch him by surprise. Well, quite clearly he did, but they were lapping about 2 seconds adrift at the time because of the different strategies. But we'll have to wait and see. We can't apportion blame. Hopefully Louise will catch up with David Coulthard. We'll hear his side of the story, but it's a great shame. It's taken the fizz out of that battle. It looks like Ralf Schumacher's got the high ground now for second place. Button lapping 8/10 slower than Ralf, so he's not about to close him down any moment now. Alonso falling back. He's 19 seconds behind Button, so it's all beginning to stabilise now. And a couple of incidents just took the fizz out of it, didn't they?
Yeah, certainly did. But I tell you what, who's going to be happy right now, Martin? That is Dave Richards and Jeffrey Willis, the technical director of the BAR team, and David Richards, the boss of BAR Honda. Because if, as things stand at the moment, and we believe Sato has to make one more stop here this afternoon, he should be able to make the stop and come back ahead. Oh, he's just made a stop, I beg your pardon. Come out ahead of Alonso. That means that BAR will have a margin of 16 points in the World Championship over Renault, which means Renault would have to finish first and second in Brazil to knock BAR off second place in the championship, which is highly unlikely. And well, that really is terrific news for BAR Honda if they can take second place in the World Championship. This time last year, they had just 16 points. They're on target to have 100 more than that when they leave here this afternoon.
What a turnaround. Very much best of the rest after Ferrari, and probably on half the budget, I would imagine, of something like Williams or McLaren. So great performance from them this year. Michael Schumacher leads by 23.7 seconds from his brother. Button currently in third place. Sato has just left the pits, and he'll be chasing him down hard. He's 13 seconds behind him in fourth.
Just 9 laps to go then in the Japanese Grand Prix. We're riding on board with Takuma Sato, who's down in 4th place. The race leader is Michael Schumacher. Ralf Schumacher is in 2nd place. Jenson Button 3rd, Sato 4th. We saw a clash between Rubens Barrichello and David Coulthard a moment ago. Louise Goodman had Rubens Barrichello's side of the story. Now she's getting David Coulthard's.
Well, Rubens told me that he wanted to catch David by surprise, which I guess he did in a way. Had you seen him coming up behind you?
Yeah, no, obviously I knew he was catching and I knew he was quick. But I was flat through 130R, so when I overtook Mark there earlier in the race, then he wasn't flat there, so you could carry the momentum. So I think it was a little optimistic, but yeah, you know, when you consider what I did to Ralph in China, then you have to say that's a payback, because it was optimistic there as well.
It was all going so well up till then.
Yeah, very strong race, 2 stops. Struggling a little bit, first few laps, and that last set of tyres, a lot of oversteer. But nonetheless, I think our pace was good enough to have Sato, so we would have been there.
Bad luck.
Yeah, bad news there for Coulthard. He was definitely shaping up to be a contender for driver of the day today, wasn't it? Stromberg, and he needs, you know, out of contract at the moment for next year. That's a bad day there, and it does seem, I think Rubens was kind of admitting he was rather over-optimistic. And of course, Formula 3 sparring partners, weren't they, back in the British Formula 3 series? They've come through this together, but Rubens, it seemed, on a march and went one step too far.
Well, it's been an entertaining afternoon. We've spent a lot of time looking at Takuma Sato, but at the front, the 2 Schumacher brothers pulling away from the BAR Hondas off the start line. Mark Webber in 3rd on the grid, dropping down to 5th early on. You can see Sato there just adjusting his helmet. I think he's just doing something on the right-hand side of his helmet, but Sato and Button were scrapping for a fairly distant 3rd behind the 2 Schumacher brothers early on. Then we saw Sato going past. He was on a different strategy from his teammate, and while Martin and I speculating that Martin speculating the 4 seconds that Button lost on that lap, letting Sato through, that was the exact margin he was behind Ralf Schumacher when Ralf emerged from his 3rd stop. Button appeared to have done enough to take 2nd place here this afternoon, but well, Ralf Schumacher managed to come out from his final pit stop ahead of Jenson Button, and those 4 seconds potentially from moving out of the way for Sato cost Button 2nd place here this afternoon. Nevertheless, looks like BAR Honda on target to seal, perhaps not sealed 2nd place in the World Championship, but make it very unlikely they're going to lose it to Renault in the final Grand Prix in Brazil in 2 weeks' time. Tremendous midfield scraps involving some very big names in Formula 1. Raikkonen, Villeneuve, Alonso, Montoya and Barrichello all together in the early stages of the Grand Prix. A lot of overtaking as well. And well, as you just heard from David Coulthard, a collision between him and Rubens Barrichello, the pair of them battling for, well, they were in the scrap for the podium positions here this afternoon. It's been a lot of very strong performances by a lot of drivers here. But I have to ask you, Martin, just looking at some of the teammate comparisons, I mean, Button and Sato, different strategies, difficult to compare them. But Raikkonen and Coulthard, both on a similar strategy, and Coulthard was much more impressive today than Raikkonen. Alonso and Villeneuve, again, on similar strategies, and Alonso 1.5 seconds a lap faster than Villeneuve today.
Yeah, you'd have to say Villeneuve's not really, Jack's not really hooked it up yet in the 2 races he's done in terms of consistently quick pace. Still getting used to that Renault. I think you'd have to say Jenson has outperformed Takuma Sato, carrying a heavier fuel load most of the day, and has ended up 8 seconds ahead despite losing that time when when he had to let him through. But you know, if BAR want to win a Grand Prix, they've got to sort out this first phase after a pit stop when they've fueled the car up. I don't know if it's a tyre thing or a balance, whatever it is, they're just too slow, and it cost him in China heavily too at the last Grand Prix. And really, that I think will be the step they need. Overall performance, of course, but that is where they lose the Grand Prix, I think, although Michael's just been in a league of his own anyway today.
Yeah, it's not just in China as well, Martin. You know, the Jenson Button, think back to Imola when he was on pole position, made a stop, lost so much time to Michael Schumacher after the first stop. It's happened throughout the season, as you say. It's been a bit of an Achilles heel, but hey, who's going to criticise them? They couldn't possibly have beaten Ferrari this year. They've done the next best job, which is to finish 2nd in the World Championship. It certainly looks like that. Sato coming under a little bit of pressure there from Nick Heidfeld. Presumably he's just put a lap on him, but he's not getting away from him. Heidfeld down in 13th place. Michael Schumacher leading the Grand Prix then with 6 laps to go. Ralf Schumacher 22 seconds behind him. Jenson Button drifting off the back of Ralf Schumacher, but nevertheless Jenson heading for his 9th podium finish of the season so far. Sato 4th and Alonso in 5th place. 6th is Raikkonen, 7th Montoya, 8th Fisichella.
Sato seems to have Ted is down there.
Yeah, a bit of concern amongst the mechanics about Takuma Sato fiddling with the straps at the back of his helmet. He hasn't said anything on the radio to complain about it, so it's not enough for him to have to make a pit stop, not the kind of pain Webber was in. But the mechanics down here think it's a problem with the straps on his hands device.
Yes, I thought it might just be his neck was getting tired with these very fast and long left-handers, but he's doing it on both sides. Seems to need to give his head a bit of support. Maybe there's some turbulence coming in the cockpit. His head's moving around quite a lot, but no more than normal. Oh, I don't know, there's a lot of turbulence going on in there.
Certainly is.
Let's have a look at any potential fights then as we head into the closing stage. Alonso is beginning to catch Sato for 4th place. Raikkonen out by himself in 6th, and Fisichella beginning to just ease up to the back of Montoya. Fisichella will rue very much that and this is Villeneuve being lapped and by the leader. So Villeneuve, 9th place man, then now a lap down. 23 seconds up the road is Fisichella, and he's hunting down Montoya for 7th and 8th.
Yep, looks like Felipe Massa, you can see there in the Sauber, is hunting down Jacques Villeneuve. That's the battle for 10th and 11th places. Massa really has hauled him in the last couple of corners. Villeneuve having to go offline to let Michael Schumacher through. That certainly cost him, didn't it? As Massa gets up very, very close behind him. Everyone just spaced out, as you say, Martin, in the top 8. Just Montoya with Fisichella a couple of seconds behind him. That little last battle for the final 2 World Championship points. Massa having a look at Villeneuve going down the inside. He's been thinking about that for a while. Villeneuve goes defensive. Nice defensive driving indeed by Jacques Villeneuve. Massa had a crack at it, but Jacques showed all his experience there and his pride. He's not going to let Felipe Massa go past. And remember, Villeneuve is driving for the Sauber team next year, but Massa just so much quicker.
Oh, that Sauber's been, of course, you've got the Ferrari engine, but it's so quick down the pit straight. Quite clearly, they're not running as much wing, but it's power as well. And Jacques did well. The Massa never should have let him back through, to be honest. Once you pass him, you've got to nail him high and dry. And Felipe kind of had that one ticked off, I think. He had that pass absolutely ticked off and was probably not expecting Jacques to re-accelerate around the outside of him. And this just drove clean past him. Incredible.
Well, remember, those two will be teammates together next year at the Sauber team. So we don't want too many rude manners in the closing stages of this championship. They've got to work together through the winter and throughout next year, certainly together. We'll try and be nice to each other as possible. 4 to go. Michael Schumacher has backed off a little bit now. Ralf Schumacher on the same sort of pace, just 21 seconds behind him, but Jenson Button not really able to do anything about Ralf Schumacher. Sato in 4th as Ralf locks up a little bit to the hairpin there. I think the Japanese crowd will be a little disappointed to see Sato finish 4th. He's finished in the points on both his previous races here in Japan, but I think they expected perhaps just a little bit more from their local hero, particularly given that he was running in 2nd place at several stages of this Grand Prix, perhaps letting them dream that he might get himself up there on the podium. I think it was Aguri Suzuki, wasn't it, back in the early 90s, the last time, perhaps the only time we had a Japanese driver on the podium here in Suzuka.
Yeah.
And he's driving the LaRousse, so it's been a long wait for the Japanese to see one of their own up on the podium, and I'm afraid looks like they're going to have to wait a bit longer.
Baumgartner out of the race for retirements. Baumgartner in the Minardi, we saw him parked up in the gravel. Coulthard, collision with Barrichello, and Webber then with some heat being transmitted through his seat and seat belt, which he couldn't bear any longer, and just got some skin burns, it seems. But 16 runners then at this stage. Michael Schumacher leads by 20.5 seconds over Ralf Schumacher. Jenson Button a further 8.3 seconds away, 28.8 away from the leader. Sato slipping back, now 11.5 seconds behind Button, and Alonso just about holding station in 5th place with a 5.3 behind Sato. Who's the man on the move? Raikkonen beginning to close in on Alonso as well. So Raikkonen's found reasonable pace towards the end of the Grand Prix. Montoya out on his own in 7th. Fisichella just keeping it honest, and 3 seconds behind him for the final point in 8th.
Yep, Raikkonen in 6th at the moment, as you can see, closing in on Alonso. Big day for him then, in a way, even though it's not been a very competitive day for him. Those 3 points, if he finishes 6th, will push him ahead of Keke Rosberg in the all-time point scoring list. Remember, Rosberg was a world champion back in 1982, the first Finnish driver to really break through in Formula One, inspiring the likes of Mika Häkkinen, JJ Lehto, and indeed Kimi Räikkönen. And just a week short of his 25th birthday, Räikkönen moves ahead of the great Rosberg in the all-time points standings. Still a long way behind Häkkinen, of course.
Michael's lapping 3 seconds off his sort of normal. He's slowing down. He's just letting Massa go past to give him a run. Effectively, it's almost a sister car, isn't it? But he let Massa unlap himself. So Massa unlap himself, and he's just cruising. Just didn't want to get in the way, and he's absolutely coasting. If you watch him through 130R, he's about 4 or 5 meters away from the outside of the racetrack. He's just absolutely wandering around there, and also wondering where the rest of them got to.
Well, he might wonder. Very relaxed on the pit wall. Only a 2-banana strategy probably today for Ross Brawn. Not a great deal of thinking for him to do, with Michael Schumacher imperious at the front. He's moved past Gerhard Berger now. He's the second most experienced Formula One driver of all time. He's 46, though, behind Riccardo Patrese, who did 257 Formula One Grand Prix. I wonder if Schumacher will eclipse that record. Perhaps it'll be the only record left uneclipsed, depending on how long he goes on in this extraordinary career.
But that's a sign of the times, isn't it? The Ferrari team just getting ready to wander over to and cheer their man over the line. No fingernail biting of, can we do it, can we do it? Incredible. Ted has some more news for us.
Down at Renault, Jacques Villeneuve's problem is understeer on this set of tyres. His lap times have been all over the place. A 1:37 this lap, a 1:38 the last one. So bad understeer hindering that Renault.
On to the last lap then for the world champion. Into turn 1 he goes, and the Ferrari crew, all 60 plus of them that travel to every Grand Prix around the world, they've got a huge budget, and boy do they use it well. Schumacher looking for Ferrari's 15th win out of 17 Grand Prix so far this season. It really has been an extraordinary year for them. And his winning margin over his brother, well, I think he's backing off to make it look like the margin was significantly less, but the reality of the situation is that he beat his brother by almost half a minute before he started backing off. Jenson Button looks like he's going to come through to the final podium position, his 9th of the season, with Takuma Sato some way behind him in 4th place. What can you say about this man that hasn't already been said before? He really is a hurricane of a driver. Out of the spoon curve, up the straight, past the pond for the final time. This beautiful circuit that's so challenging for the drivers. Every corner, they say, you have to take risks. Every corner beckons you on, asks you questions. This one in particular, 130R, taken at well over 180 miles an hour in full racing speed. But Michael Schumacher is in cruise mode. He is coming through to claim his 13th win of the 2004 World Championship. He's bounced back strongly after a poor showing in China. Michael Schumacher shows everyone who's boss. The Italian flags proudly proclaim the car as being made in Italy, but the driver, his gift made in heaven. Ralf Schumacher, terrific drive by him today as well, particularly bouncing back, and he seemed to have been held up behind Button and Coulthard, but that's a really good bounce back for him for his first podium finish of 2004. Meanwhile, Button, well, he's been up there many times this season. He won't be unhappy with 3rd, but he will feel, perhaps, that it could have been 2nd. And I'm sure they'll be reviewing that decision for him to get out of the way of Takuma Sato, because the seconds lost there potentially cost him 2nd place here. Sato 4th, Alonso 5th, Räikkönen 6th, Montoya 7th, and Fisichella 8th.
That's the, according to my records, that's Jenson's 10th podium of the year, 14th point-scoring race. Incredible season for him. But, Michael, well, just long gone, wasn't he? They hadn't got an answer for him on any corner or any part of the racetrack at any stage of the race.
So presumably he's your driver of the day, but there have been quite a few other strong contenders today.
Yeah, I think so. I think Alonso's done a solid job in 5th too. Coulthard was on a decent run. Button and Sato, solid drives, I think, but Michael was just gone, wasn't he? I mean, he had the fastest car, but he made the best of it. He didn't trip over anybody. Rubens really paid a heavy penalty, didn't he? He won in China, so he went out early this morning. That disadvantaged him because the track was still dry. Made a mistake, ended up a long way back on the grid, ends up tripping over David Coulthard, and that's how it's a concertina effect, it's a knock-on effect. And Felipe Massa there, who finished 9th, just outside the points, clearly probably out of fuel, I would imagine.
Yeah, Jacques Villeneuve, for the record, finished in 10th place, ahead of the man he replaced in the Renault, Jarno Trulli, making his first outing for the Toyota team, for whom he will drive next year. That's the photo on the front page of the sporting section tomorrow. Yet another win, number 13. Unlucky for some, but luck, as I said at the beginning, playing a big part in the story here. You needed to be out late in qualifying. Michael Schumacher was, by virtue of that poor finish in China, and well, made all the difference for him. Same story with Ralf Schumacher as well. Remember, he retired in China, and that really worked out for him here. So Williams back on the podium, first time in 12 races, and Patrick Head of the Williams team talking to Ted Kravitz.
Indeed, down here at Williams. Patrick, is that a bit of a relief, honestly, to be back on the podium?
Well, I suppose I'd be being dishonest. So I'm certainly pleased to be on the podium, no doubt about it. But you know, 2 cars in the points, and we pulled ahead more from McLaren, and obviously it's very important to finish ahead of them. Fantastic drive from Ralf. He did just what he needed to do at the right time with speed. Juan got an overtaking manoeuvre wrong with Trulli, lost a couple of places, and the traffic didn't fall right for him. Very dependent on traffic here, but great race from both of them.
With the exception of the last race, of course. Do you think Ralph's been a bit better since his break?
Everybody in the team says what a pleasure he is to work with, and why have Frank and I not signed him up for next year? He's a very fast driver, and he's very good, and deserves to get results. I hope it won't be so good for him next year, but no, I don't really mean that. But no, fantastic to see.
Thanks, Patrick. Well done.
Yes, Ralph will be hoping those Toyotas have got a rather more consistent race pace, but nonetheless, that's where he's off to next year. Massive points advantage, haven't they, Ferrari? Just incredible.
Certainly have, but as you saw there, the 16 points advantage now. Started out as 9 between BAR and Renault. Michael Schumacher celebrating and savouring the moment. He's clinched world championships here before. He clinched this one a long time ago. He didn't need too much help from this guy today. Ross Brawn, the strategist and technical director of the team. Ferrari were more adaptable on the day. Schumacher more adaptable and faster with his car and his tyre package. It was a day of guesswork, really. They'd only had wet running on Friday. A few hastily scrabbled together laps on a drying track this morning in qualifying. And well, you have to say all the Formula One teams rose to the occasion this afternoon, didn't they, in very difficult circumstances.
Yeah, I think had this have happened earlier on in the season, James, when they had new cars and not so much data, they may have struggled more, but most of them seemed to pretty much hit the bullseye, didn't they? A few cars were clearly struggling out there with the unknown quantities of various setups and pressures and blankings, etc. But the vast majority of them really did get it absolutely spot on. It's a fast race. An hour and 24 minutes, average speed, including pit stops and everything, 218 kilometres per hour. That's the nature of the circuit, and it was a hot pace.
Certainly was a hot pace. There you can see, look down from the helicopter on the pit lane, Parc Fermé, the huge Japanese crowd up in the grandstands, around 130,000 people. There's a big Honda plant here, so a lot of their workers will have come down to see this one, to see Takuma Sato. 1 goal, it says on his gloves. They certainly hoped that goal today was a podium, but it wasn't to be. Jenson Button, as Martin said, getting his 10th podium, not 9th as I said earlier on, 10th podium of the season so far in his place, and well, just emphasizing that Italian message. Amazing how the success of Ferrari in the last 5 or 6 years has transformed the image of made in Italy. Back in the 1970s, if you said a car was made in Italy, people would raise their eyebrows at you. Now, made in Italy means something, doesn't it? It means technology, glory, success. What a tremendous sheen Ferrari have put on the brand.
Yeah, and let's hope there's a British Grand Prix next year so we can say raced in Britain, and of course 6.5 of the teams are based in Britain. Minardi kind of have 2 bases, don't they?
It's a saga, isn't it? The British Grand Prix. One more run and run. And here's your race winner. Out onto the podium.
Well done, Tony Gers.
13 victories in a single Formula One season. I never thought I would live to see that, and it's not over yet. We've got one more race in a fortnight in Brazil. Can he make it 14, or will Rubens Barrichello get that romantic victory he so badly wants?
So we've got a Ferrari driver, Williams driver, and a BAR up there. BMW engines, Ferrari and Honda engines. Michelin and Bridgestone represented. Jenson Button spoiling the family party up there, isn't he, really? The two Schumacher brothers. But really great variety. Good drives. Michael Schumacher went back to test in between these two Grand Prix. Most of the drivers, virtually all the drivers, stayed out. Button there raising his third place trophy. But Michael said, I want to try and win one of the last 2 races. Remember, he's had a 3-race losing streak, and he was one of the few to go back and work between China and Japan.
Well, Formula One's unpredictable weekend in Japan ends with an expected conclusion. The typhoon may have missed us yesterday, but today we have been truly blown away by Hurricane Michael.
Congratulations to the 3 podium finishers in the Fuji TV Japanese Grand Prix. To Jenson Button, scoring his 10th podium finish of the year in the 100th Grand Prix for Lucky Strike BAR Honda. To Ralf Schumacher, second for BMW Williams. And to Michael Schumacher, extending his own personal record to 13 wins in the season for Scuderia Ferrari Marlboro. Michael, looked like a copybook race today from the pole. A difficult qualifying session, obviously, earlier today. And then start to finish.
Yeah, we obviously sort of pre-decided the race at qualifying, because it was for us pretty clear that we would have a very strong race pace, but qualifying was the doubt, in particular as it was damp condition and we can have problems in these conditions. As we got pole position there, I was pretty confident if the start was going well that I could do it. Though I had Ralf in my mirrors for quite a while and the gap wasn't increasing as I was sort of expecting. Because they seem to find a very good race pace too. But luckily he pitted earlier and then it was sort of clear how the race would go.
There were quite a variety of strategies today, probably because qualifying and racing was on the same day. Was that a concern before the race, wondering what everybody else was up to?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, it wasn't clear who would have been how heavy because you had no indication from free practice. Therefore, we had to be flat out in the beginning part of the race until pit stops had been done, and then we could sort of judge who was on what strategy.
And a trouble-free, instant-free race, except I think there was a Jordan stationary in the middle of the track, and on one lap he came past.
Yeah, but there was enough space, there was yellow flag indication. I slowed sufficient down to make sure I can handle the situation, and then it was straightforward.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ralf, congratulations to you too. Your first proper podium, shall we say, of the year. Good to see you back here. And a trouble-free race and not too much traffic around you either once Michael got away.
Well, I mean, the start went okay. And I was actually surprised that I was able to follow Michael. Even though we pitted a bit earlier, still it was quite good. Then I had a lot of traffic. I mean, came in, back in the middle of a pack and well, at the back of a pack, basically. And I was a bit concerned, but it all worked out at the end. Car worked pretty well. Team did a great job in all the pit stops. So went trouble-free and quick. It was the right strategy for us, for the pace we had. So I think it was a good weekend for us.
What was it like following Michael in those early stages? Michael said he was a bit concerned at how you were able to hang on to him. Did you feel that you could match his pace?
Well, in the beginning, sort of. I mean, he was still pulling away, but not, as he said, not as much as he might have expected. So did I expect him to be a lot quicker. But then, you know, I mean, I pitted 4 laps early, so you'd expect some difference in fuel load anyway.
Well done. Jenson, an interesting race for you too. You held off Taku for the first 6 laps. We didn't actually see what happened there. Did you let him pass, or did he squeeze past on the lighter fuel load?
Well, he was probably slowing me down actually, because I was really struggling with rear grip on the first 5 or 6 laps. Big oversteer on pretty much every corner I came to until the graining started. So he came past through the quick left-hander Dunlop. There was no use trying to fight him or anything, because I knew that I was on a different strategy.
As it turned out, your 2-stop beat his 3-stop.
Yeah, well, the strategies were very, very similar in time, race time. But I went for the 2-stop because it worked for me very well at the last race, and I'm used to driving the car when it's pretty heavy, and it worked pretty well. But compared to these two, we were quite a way off in the end.
Where do you think the difference was with Ralf today? Do you think it was in that early stage?
The first stint, definitely. I mean, he pulled out a huge gap in the first stint. Ralf stopped, I think it was 6 laps before me, but even so, the pace was just, the difference was huge.
Well done. Well, Michael, we had a unique day today, qualifying and racing on the same day. Your verdict of how it went?
Yeah, I think that goes down to history that day of Formula One. Pretty sure some people will think whether we should continue to do that way. I have to say it was exciting, but I prefer the old style.
Well done. If you can have some words from you now in your own language.
Ja, ein sehr interessanter Sonntag. Nachdem wir heute Morgen das Qualifying für uns entscheiden konnten, sah es auch fürs Rennen natürlich sehr positiv aus, da im ganzen Jahr eigentlich unsere unser Rennspeed immer sehr gut war, habe ich auch hier nichts anderes erwartet. Speziell, wo wir hier auf Bridgestone Hausterrain sind. Und da geht eigentlich ein Riesenkompliment hin, die sich das ganze Jahr und hier speziell richtig reingekniet haben und uns super Reifen geliefert haben. Jedes Rennen haben wir dominiert aufgrund unserer Bridgestone-Reifen, Grund unseres Teamwork zusammen mit unseren Partnern. Und das ist sicherlich ein schöner Moment, wenn wir für Bridgestone im Heim Grand Prix so ein Resultat rausfahren konnten. Das war unser Traum, unser Ziel und das haben wir hinbekommen. Danke an alle, ans Team, und die uns unterstützt haben.
Ralf?
Naja, es war natürlich gerade nach China, wo es ja schon fast ganz okay war für mich, schon toll, dieses Wochenende so gut dabei zu sein, Zweiter zu werden, vor allen Dingen fürs Team, um unsere Position zu stärken, speziell gegenüber McLaren, was ja ganz wichtig ist im Constructor. Jetzt werde ich gleich so schnell wie möglich mal einen Drink mit dem Team nehmen und dann so schnell als möglich nach Hause zu meiner Familie und dann mit denen auch zu feiern.
Thank you, gentlemen.